All right, let's just jump right in. I want you to picture this scene for a second. Moses, the legendary leader, he's gone. An entire nation, these are former slaves, mind you, is camped right on the edge of a hostile land. And one guy, Joshua, has just been handed this absolutely impossible job: lead them all into war. I mean, the stakes just could not be higher. And that's where we're going to start. It all comes down to the single most important question facing Joshua. See, he's got the command from God, sure, but does he actually have the command of the people? Because let's be real, not all of them are on the same page. This is his very first test, and it might just be his greatest. So what does he do? How does he handle it? Well, we're going to crack open the text of Joshua chapter 1 and look at his very first actions as the new commander-in-chief. And it's interesting, they come in two really distinct parts. Okay, so first up, Joshua gives this big general order through his officers. He's basically like, get ready. In 3 days, we're crossing the Jordan River to take the land God promised us. Simple enough, right? A call to the entire nation. But then, he immediately pivots. He turns and speaks directly to a very specific group, these tribes who wanted to settle on the other side of the Jordan. And this, right here, is where things could get tricky. Yeah, you see, this wasn't some new problem that just popped up. This goes back years. A special deal had been made with 2.5 of the tribes. You've got Reuben, Gad, and half of Manasseh. And now, at literally the most critical moment possible, Joshua has to call in that IOU. So let's back up a bit and trace how this happened. Way back in the book of Numbers, these tribes see this land east of the Jordan and they're like, hey, this is perfect for our livestock. Can we just settle here? Now, Moses was not happy at first. He thought they were just trying to get out of the upcoming war. But they made a promise. They said, look, our families will stay here, but we swear our soldiers will cross the river and fight right alongside you. And so the deal was made. Then, fast forward, right before he dies, Moses reminds them of this exact promise in Deuteronomy. And now, here we are in Joshua 1, and Joshua is using almost the exact same language to hold them to their word.
Okay, so let's recap. Joshua has given 2 commands. One to everybody, and one to this very specific group. And right after that, the text says, and they answered Joshua. But hang on a second. Who exactly are they? Now, this might seem like a tiny little detail, but trust me, the answer changes everything.
This really is the central mystery of the whole chapter. Was this just a small faction talking back to him? Or was it something way, way bigger? So you've got 2 possibilities here. On the one hand, it makes total sense that the they is just those Transjordan tribes, right? I mean, Joshua was just talking to them. It's a direct conversation. But what if it was the entire nation? Think about that. That would be this massive vote of confidence, an incredible statement of unity right before they invade. So, which one is it? Well, to get the answer, we actually have to look deeper than just the English translation. A scholar, Dr. David Howard, points out that the real clue isn't in the words themselves, but in how the story is actually put together in the original Hebrew. We have to, crack the narrative code. All right, so check this out. Dr. Howard breaks down the chapter structure into what he calls the narrative backbone. You can see there are 4 clear chunks of speech. First, God speaks to Joshua, then Joshua speaks to his officers, then Joshua turns to the Transjordan tribes, and finally, you get this response to Joshua. Now, normally in Hebrew storytelling, this would all just flow smoothly, one speech after the next. But something different happens here. Something is a little off. So, right there, between Joshua's speech to his officers and his speech to the tribes, the author does something really clever. They break the normal storytelling rhythm. It's a grammatical thing. Scholars call it disjunctive syntax, but you can just think of it as a little flag the author's waving. It's like they're yelling, hey, pay attention. These 2 speeches, even though they're to different groups, are meant to be understood as one single event. And that brilliant little clue, it completely solves our mystery. It tells us this wasn't some fractured, disconnected conversation. No, this was a full-blown national assembly. That little narrative break tells us absolutely everything we need to know. The they who answered Joshua, it wasn't just those 2.5 tribes, it was everyone. Since the author grammatically linked his 2 speeches together as a single event, the response that comes next has to be from the whole group, from the entire nation, speaking with one voice. And you have to understand why this is such a huge deal. This isn't just a grammar lesson. This is the only moment in the entire book of Joshua where the whole nation together explicitly says, you are our leader, we will follow you. It creates this foundation of absolute unity right before they march into a massive war. That private conversation God had with Joshua at the beginning of the chapter, it's now been publicly stamped and approved by all the people. And just listen to their response. It's incredible. There's no bickering, no what about this, no conditions, just pure, total commitment. Everything you have commanded us, we will do. Wherever you send us, we will go. I mean, can you imagine? That is exactly what a brand new leader needs to hear in that moment.
Okay, but there is this one kind of funny little catch in their promise. They say they'll obey Joshua just as we obeyed Moses in all things. And, as Dr. Howard points out, if you know anything about their history of complaining and rebelling in the wilderness, that's a hilariously low bar they just set for themselves. But hey, their hearts were in the right place.
And this is what makes it such a perfect, full circle moment. The whole chapter ends with the people saying the exact same thing to Joshua that God said to him at the very beginning, only be strong and courageous. So think about it. God gives the command. Joshua accepts it, and now the entire nation affirms it. You have this perfect, unbroken chain of command, of unity, and of courage, right at the moment they need it most, just as their greatest challenge begins.